Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Flatout Racing Network's coverage of the RSD 200 presented by Blue Egg, and as well as Lake Norman Motorsports here tonight at Daytona International Speedway. We're getting set here not only for the main event, but for a qualifying heat as well. All drivers that are taking part in the heat will be transferring in, but gives us a little bit of a preview of what to expect when we get to the 80-lapper. I'm Seth Cole, alongside of broadcast colleagues Samuel Dyer. And Sam, just based off what we saw in practice and what we know how the trucks handle here at Daytona, what are we looking for here this evening with just cash on the line?
Yeah, just cash on the line means aggression levels are at an all-time high. Drivers going to be driving reckless, and really, it's about getting up front as quick as possible for some of these drivers. Others will be thinking about these lay back and let everyone wreck in front of them strat. But here for the 6-lap shootout, where it really doesn't matter, it's all about getting up front as quick as possible here with these 13 drivers in this race.
Looks like we're going to have a total of 33 drivers that will take the green flag here this evening. 20 drivers have already qualified their way into the top 20 spots during the 2-lap qualifying session that just took place moments ago. The 13 drivers that are going to take part in this heat, your front row is going to be Michael Goodman alongside of Michael Daniel Martinez, Shane DiMentova and Chase Dixon in row 2, Harrison Talent and Logan Slavosky, that's row 3. Row 4, Todd Eldridge and Sam Smith. In the top 10 will be Lee Overton and Ryan Lutz. Row 6 finds Tate Lytle and Joshua Slate, and in the final row will be the 33 of Dylan Jones, who I believe missed getting onto the grid, so it actually looks like it will be 12 trucks here in this heat that will be taking part in this 6-lapper.
Yeah, I mean, Joshua Slate and also Jones were one of the last drivers to hop in here before this race got started in the heat, so everyone knows that Joshua Slate is a quick driver here at the Super Speedway races, so he's someone to watch out for in this heat race. But, man, I'm excited for the feature after this. 80 laps for these drivers, looking like if they go green, 1 green flag pit stop. But for this heat, it is going to be all about being up front in 6 laps.
Now, you know, whenever we end up having races that have the heats prior, we kind of look at the possibility that someone that runs well in the heat possibly transferring that momentum over to the main event. But this is Daytona, where it's all about being in the right place at the right time. But let's say in that 80-lap event, we end up having a late race caution and they go back green with 5 or 6 laps to go. Does the experience these drivers in this heat gain possibly help them towards a late race restart in the main event?
It could possibly help them out, but the big thing is that track is going to be slightly different from where they're racing right now to later on in the day. The track is going to be a little bit hotter during this heat race, and it might cool off during our featured race just because of the sun setting down. These drivers are going to have a lot of fun out here, but I think that experience that they're going to get here will help just slightly later on, but it matters if they're there by the end of this race.
Now, obviously, as we mentioned, all the drivers taking part here in this heat race are transferring to the main event. They'll be starting from 21st on back. So how aggressive do we see them in this 6-lap heat?
I mean, you can be as aggressive as you want. Like I said, it's a little bit of practice for if we go and have a 6-lap shootout at the end. But right now, it's go time. Pace cars rolling off, and the green flag about to be waved.
Let's get ready to turn him loose for 6 laps as Michael Goodman gets a great jump here, which maybe is not necessarily the best thing to have happen at a super speedway, but we'll see how it pans out as he leads him into turn 1.
Yeah, everywhere else you would love a huge restart, but you're a super speedway and you're a sitting duck with that much of space. Now you got the rest of the field. They're trying to figure out where they're going to be. In the back, Tate Lytle gets a little squirrely.
Also, Todd Eldridge down that inside line was moving back and forth a little bit in the 96. Of course, the U.S. Olympic pro skater, the gold medalist, and on the top side, we're starting to see a second lane form. That is Michael Daniel Martinez. He's got Sam Smith up there with him. Chase Dixon, I believe that's also the 21 of Harrison Talon, rather.
And D. Mantova deciding I want to lead this up to high side as he starts to take off up here. Also update, Dylan Jones did get going there on, had to start from pit road. So that 33 machine is, the 16 goes around.
Sam Smith down into Todd Eldridge. No cautions. I think the wall saved him from spinning it.
Nope,
now the caution comes out.
As that is
someone, Ryan Lutz was into the back of him.
That's going to be an admin thrown caution as we had the 16 and 36 collected and stuck into the wall as they were just rubbing into one another. And I would like to say that I'm not surprised Ryan Lutz is into this, but based off practice, Ryan Lutz was probably involved in every single time these cars went around.
That was hard to tell what happened, but it was in the tri-oval, and that's one of the places you cannot bump. And I believe it was the 36 of Ryan Lutz that was behind the 16 of Sam Smith. We'll see if there was some contact between the two coming through the tri-oval.
We'll also be watching to see if these caution laps are going to count or not for these drivers here in the heat. If they do, this could be a one-lap shootout for these drivers as they come around the oval now, and the laps do count. So the drivers right now trying to get up to the pace car as quick as possible, get this race going again, but this race could be ending under caution.
Sam Smith has actually teleported his truck back to pit road. A lot of damage sustained on that car, both on the left front after getting into the side of Todd Eldridge, also on the right side, smacking the outside wall, and a lot of damage there on the rear of his machine as he had Ryan Lutz into the back of him for a couple good 100 feet heading down towards turn 1. That'll, I would assume, also affect the rest of the race for Ryan Lutz here also. And let's remember as well that what these drivers are battling for right now is they're battling for the highest possible starting position in the main event, which for the race winner would be 21st place.
Yeah, they're just battling it out for that, but also it's super speedway racing. Cars are always going to be aggressive, trying to find the pace and the speed to get up front as quick as possible. But as we have drivers in pit road, it's more of waiting to see if we'll actually have a one-lap shootout for these drivers or this race will finish under caution. Just because it's 6 laps, I mean, that is already a close window here with super speedway pace laps. I'll have to wait and see when those lights will come off and if we can go green once again.
Ryan Lutz sits on pit road getting repairs done to his number 36. That caution actually was a bit of a saving grace for Dylan Jones. You mentioned the fact that he had been able to come off of pit road and was still on the lead lap when that caution came out. Now he's going to be up here with the lead group. If we do go back green, he's got a chance to be able to advance up a couple more positions before the conclusion of this heat.
Yeah, and that's some big advantage to be moving back up. But I'm pretty sure that most of these drivers back here, it's their one time to start making some moves quick, because if you're starting in the back, usually when you go green for the super speedway races, you decide to linger back until about the last 20 laps to finally push forward.
Got a couple of trucks that have come to pit road. Logan Savlowski, also the 16 of Lee Overton. Why? Oh, actually, I think they both disconnected. So not sure what's going on there, unless they're just parking their trucks waiting for the main event.
It might be what they're thinking about doing. Hey, let's not wreck up our machines any more than we already have, and let's just get prepared for that next race. I would rather just wait instead of chugging around this course having low RPMs and low on power, and I'll be so far off from the front pack.
That means right now, unless Lutz and Sam Smith are able to get back out there, Slavosky will start 30th. Lee Overton will start in 31st when we get to the 80-lap main event, which will be coming up momentarily here. These drivers just qualifying for where they're going to be starting in that main event race. The top 20 are already locked into their spots, and I believe Chuck Sweeting is scheduled to start on the pole position for that one.
Yeah, it's looking at the poll for the next race. I believe pole is going to Nick DeGroot. Then second is going to be Tyler Fody. That's going to be your front row. And Tony Edmondson is going to be third. And so those drivers all are preparing for the featured race, but it's going to be a fast one out there.
Well, Sam, we are going to go back green. They're actually going to do a green-white checker here to finish off this heat, adding on an extra lap. So it'll be a 2-lap shootout to finish out the heat race here.
And this is a great time for practice. How do you figure out how to get up front as quick as possible? And there actually is a chance. I mean, with how aggressive we could be seeing these drivers in this 80-lap featured race, heck, our field could be this small by the end of the race.
Absolutely could. I mean, when there's no points on the line for drivers, especially at the super speedways, they're usually more willing to take risks than they would knowing that points in a possible championship at the end of the season is on the line. But this is a special event race. It's a tribute race, and there is cash on the line. So it's going to make these drivers a little bit more anxious and a little bit more brave to make maybe 3 wide moves than they would be under normal circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, this race is mainly, this whole entire event is a tribute for Randy Dixon, who passed away this last July, and the whole entire Lake Norman Motorsports team misses him dearly, and this whole entire event is really to honor him, but also give these guys a chance to race at Daytona.
Bunch of drivers in the field tonight. Will be running special tribute schemes to Randy Dixon, and we'll try and highlight them during the course of that main event race. But here we go, getting ready for a 2-lap shootout to finish out this heat race. Again, all these drivers, whether they end up in one piece or on the end of the tow hook, they're transferring into the main event. This is basically just an opportunity for them to log some extra laps here tonight at Daytona before getting ready for the 80-lap feature, as Michael Goodman, who started pole for this, leads them back. Green flag in the air for this green-white checker.
Getting a huge push from Tillman, and that is a massive push. This could be a 2-car tandem, 2-truck tandem that is just pulling away from the rest of the field at this moment, as they're almost up to a half a second gap between third and second.
We saw in practice trucks lining up nose to tail, pushing each other in a tandem, and it actually was working. We'll see if the 44 and the 20 can do it. No, it doesn't look like it. Harrison Talent, Michael Daniel Martinez, Chase Dixon have reeled them back in.
Man, DiVantota tried his best to hold on to those guys, but here they come with the momentum and the tow, as here comes that 12 machine on the high side with a head of steam being pushed by Martinez there, and they're going to continue to push on. And here's the thing, this is such a short race that they can push as hard as they want right now and get to the end, because, oh, a little bit of contact there, because it's so short. Those engines aren't going to blow up just quite yet.
Flags in the air, so we're racing back to the checkered flag now as we got a car up in the wall. That's Martinez off the nose of Flatout. They saved it, but that's going to kill the whole outside line as you've got Goodman, as well as I believe that's DiVantova and Dixon on that inside line.
Here comes Dixon trying to figure out where he wants to place his car, but also here comes Slate in that 88 machine.
Where did Joshua Slate come from as he's to jump up to that outside line? Now maybe looking to the middle. Now he is going to go 3 wide. No help for either one of those cars on the outside lines. The inside line formulated with a 44 and the 20.
The way that the 07 was kind of boxing into 20 from having a chance to make a move here. But it's looking like it's going to be Michael Goodman that's going to get it here. But here comes Slate on the outside.
Here comes DiVantova looking for the win himself to the outside. Slate up and over. Michael Goodman's going to win the heat race here this evening. Oh, and Slate's still flying up into the air past the start-finish line.
I think there were a couple of other machines that went flying there, but that's just the first heat. Now it's time for the featured event.
And it's going to be, as you mentioned, Nick DeGroot that's going to be starting on point for this one alongside of Tyler Fody. It's so amazing because Flatout Racing Network has covered Elite Racing League. We've covered Monday Night Racing. There are names from those 2 different leagues coming together here tonight in this one, and a lot of drivers that we know are capable of taking a checkered flag at Daytona International Speedway.
That's the one thing about these super speedway races is every single driver has a chance to win this race. Even if you qualified at the back of the field, if you didn't have the fastest car at one point, the draft is going to help you so much to make a move on any of the cars in front of you.
Now we're showing you the starting grid here, and just basically take notice from first on down through 20th. Those drivers are starting in those positions based off of their qualifying times prior to the heat race. You, of course, saw as well that heat race take place where drivers finished in those heats is where they're going to be starting this race. Michael Goodman will be starting from 21st. Shane DiMantova will be starting from 22nd, and the rest of the field, how they finished is where they'll line up for the completion of this field.
Yeah, before we get this race started, we have to give a couple of thanks to people that helped make this event possible. I mean, first and foremost, we got to give thank you to Tyler Dixon for coming and reaching out to us to even have this and broadcast this event, because it's so special to him and that whole entire Lake Norman Motorsports team, as well as Scott Haney, Reese Melton, Vincent Isabella, Tony Edmondson, TD Custom Designs, which TD Custom Designs, the winner gets cash money, but they also get 3 custom designs from TD Custom Designs. Huge for them. Also, Blue Egg Marketing, Lake Norman Motorsports for everything they do, the Elite Racing League, and Hanson Motorsports.
A lot on the line here tonight for these drivers, and it's going to take 80 circuits around this 2.5-mile super speedway for someone to be able to claim that prize. And with what's going to be a total of 33 trucks taking the green flag, we're going to be expecting to see a lot of aggression, more than likely a lot of big wrecks in this race as well. And so it'll be interesting to see, especially early on, just what these drivers plan on doing, because, you know, that old adage, in order to finish first, you have to first finish. These guys do not want to, at least in the first quarter of this race, even in the first 5 laps, they don't want to have a torn-up truck that early.
I mean, we talked about it before the broadcast went up. What is the ups and downs of these cars wrecking in the first 5 laps? I think a lot of us were saying they're going to wreck even before the first 5 laps. These drivers are excited. There's going to be jitters. You know the excitement level is high. Money's on the line. Custom designs on the line. Who's going to get it done, though?
Here we go then. 80 laps here this evening in the RSD 200 presented by Lake Norman Motorsports, and the green flag is in the air.
And both drivers staying side by side at the moment. Tyler Fode, Nick DeGroot, both of these drivers very accomplished here on iRacing. They've won practically everything that they've raced in, and they're expected to be out here as our front runners.
Fode's got that top side with Chuck Sweeting pushing him on the inside. It's Nick DeGroot. He's got the 77 of Tony Edmondson pushing him. Right now looks like that outside line prevailing early, especially down the back straightaway. Top 2, maybe 3 might be clear by the time they get to turn 3.
Yeah, these drivers all trying to figure out where are they going to place themselves, because it is hot and heavy up here. Really, it's looking like Chuck Sweeting trying to figure out where he wants to put his car, but everyone is kind of still right on top of one another. If you make one mistake, it's going to really cost your whole entire line right now, as we're staying 2 by 2.
And with the way that these trucks are set up and the low downforce that they have, you have to stay lined up with the car in front of you, or the truck in front of you in this case. You saw when Sweeting stepped up just a little bit there in 3, it killed the momentum of that entire outside line and allowed Nick DeGroot to battle back on the bottom.
And these drivers trying to figure out where they're going to be putting themselves. Nick DeGroot, he's going to just hold that inside line. Make the outside line, make the move. Try to get by him the best that you can, and just hold your line, because if everyone on the low side holds it, they're good as they get a little bit out of sequence there.
And that might be big, and a couple of these drivers worried, and they are falling to the back. I saw the 20 of Shane DiMantova actually step down below the double yellow line and fall to the rear of the field, trying to maybe ride for the moment, not liking what he's seeing up at the front.
But up front, it's going to be Edmondson on the high side, trying to get by Fode, who now is in front of Nick DeGroot. So these guys are going to be shuffling in and out from the high side to the low side. If you find a spot, put your car in there and try to fit. But I mean, that's the risk of pure racing a super speedway racing, is that if you don't fit and you go down, you can be taking out a lot of machines.
That white machine of Chuck Sweeting leading that outside line. He's got Casey Hatch behind him, and then that car darting back and forth. That yellow machine is the 4 of Jeff O'Quinn, trying to be third in that outside line and help to push that second lane past the inside line.
And right now, Chuck Sweeting doing the best that he can in that 75 machine. And, you know, we're expecting to see Chuck Sweeting as those guys up front. There's a lot of machines out here of guys that like to be up front, but there's a couple of machines that like to start in the back and stay in the back. And that's what Tyler Dixon's doing back there. DiMantova and Sam Smith all deciding, hey, let's stay in the back and survive this thing.
Now Tyler Fode out in front, Nick DeGroot in second. Those two trucks have cleared to single file. They're side by side from third all the way back outside of the top 20. from about back to around the 56 of Tate Lytle. And then you've got those stragglers you were talking about, those drivers just currently riding, waiting for an opportunity, if a wreck happens, to be able to make their way through.
Well, they're coming to that marker where I was talking about, and really, I'm surprised to see, but excited to see. The drivers all have understood it's about making it to the end. You cannot win this race in the first 5 laps. Let's just stay in line and make it to the end.
Couple of drivers in the middle of the pack moving back and forth, and that's something I watched these guys do in practice where they were racing double wide, they were racing 3 wide. Very difficult for these drivers to be able to hold a straight line down the straightaways. A lot of weaving back and forth. How difficult is that to then line the bumpers up when you're trying to give someone a push?
It's so difficult. It's about being extremely patient with the car in front of you, knowing that your car probably isn't going to be wanting to stay stable because of the wind, the draft, and just all the different factors. As we see some cars going 3 wide, as that is going to be Quinn trying to make that out. I mean, Hatch trying to make that outside line work, but it is not going to work. He's going to be losing a lot of time.
That did not work at all as Chuck Sweeting was put in the middle, and then to his rescue came Reese Milton in the 7, Matthew Weeks in the 11. They're going to keep that 75 up there, and actually, believe it or not, just that 3-car tandem through the middle of 3 and 4 is allowing them to battle Fody for the lead yet again.
Really, it was just 2 cars. It was the 78 and the 7 that were sticking together and making that work. As it's going to be Chuck Sweeting now on the inside, and they move it to the inside. So now it's just a 2-car tandem on the outside, looking for some help, and I think that help is coming. But where will it come from? The 11 car jumping up high, trying to earn more and more machines to the high side.
That's Reese Milton in the 7 up on the outside line, getting a big shove from Josh Robin in the 8. So numerically lined up there are those 2 machines. Here comes the 77 of Tony Edmondson. He jumped up in front of Matthew Weeks, now 3rd on that outside line.
There are more cars figuring out, hey, the more we have in line, the faster we'll go. The inside line is where you feel comfortable, but the outside line is where you can make some moves, and that's what we're starting to see with almost every single car that has been leading the outside lane. They have moved up to the lead at some point, as Nick DeGroot, who was our pole sitter leading that inside line, is now 3 cars back.
One thing I'm noticing that they're doing as well, as opposed to what we would normally expect to see, they're not really utilizing the side draft that much. That outside line is giving the inside line about, oh, we nearly had a wreck, I think, there, as Josh Robin was getting a little out of shape, but they're giving about a half a truck length, maybe a full truck length lane going into these corners, not really pinching each other down, which could also eventually later on this race lead to a wreck.
Oh, yeah. I mean, later on, we're expecting about 20 laps to go. This whole entire nice side-by-side racing that we're seeing right now will turn into 2, 3, maybe even 4 wide if they really feel risky about it. But, I mean, these drivers are just playing it tame at the moment.
Obviously, right now, it's way too early to speculate, but I believe you mentioned coming into this broadcast that these drivers, just with it being 80 laps, they can make this entire race on 1 pit stop, so 33 trucks all trying to figure out how to come to pit road under green flag conditions. If we get to that point, that's going to be fun to watch too.
Yeah, it's going to be 1 pit stop with these drivers. A lot of them are probably thinking about coming at different times at that 1 pit stop zone. Some will try to push their fuel window all the way to the end, which would be probably around lap 45. Others might think about pitting around lap 38. So as long as you come in with a group of at least 3 to 5 drivers or more, you should be set. But do not come in by yourself or just with one other person, because you're going to be running way too slow to try to gain up to anyone else.
Riding on board here with the 40 of Tyler Fody, who was the pole sitter that led us to the green flag, and just watching him behind Chuck Sweeting in the corners. You cannot push another driver through the corners or else you run the risk of spinning them around, but I was noticing he had it picture perfect where he comes right up to the back bumper but doesn't touch it, just has it as close as possible. There's really an art to pushing a truck and making speed at super speedways like this.
Well, I said maybe we'll wait until 20 laps to go before we go 3 wide. That would go 3 wide right now, as you've got 3 wide action about 4 rows deep, now 5 rows deep. Is that 7 car blinking just a little bit? And that's got to be a little nerve-wracking for the rest of the field to see a car blinking like that.
Nobody to help in that 3rd lane for Reese Milton. Now jumping up there is Tony Edmondson, trying to give the 7 maybe a little bit of draft to get him down to the 2nd lane, but he's got Matthew Weeks to his inside, so Milton going to the back and going there quickly with no help in that 3rd lane.
And it might be a safe thing. I mean, if these drivers are already racing like this now, it might be better to be in the back just so you have time to react in case the big one strikes.
Another thing that you're not going to see later on this race that we just saw there, a little bit more give and less take as Ethan Burrell, the Rick and Morty number 17 car back there, actually allowed the 7 of Reese Milton to get in line. When we get to the closing stages of this race, if you want a spot in line, you're going to have to force your way in there.
Yeah, if you find a spot, put your car there. Don't wait until someone says, oh, you're clear to finally come down. Unless your spotter says otherwise, you got to come down.
10 laps complete here this evening. And we've still got a long ways to go. Currently, all 33 trucks, I believe, I was going to say all 33 trucks are still in this race, but the 2 drivers that we saw DNF from the heat race, Logan Slavosky and Lee Overton, neither one of them took the green flag to start this race, so they have both retired out of the event in 32nd and 33rd, as Ryan Lutz kind of out of shape back there. So right now, only 31 drivers on the lead lap, and remember we saw Shane DiMantova dropping towards the back earlier on this race. He has since lost the draft, both he and Sam Smith in the 16, in a little bit of trouble right now.
Yeah, sometimes you can drop back and you would be all right to be lingering back, but you have to be with the group of cars. And right now, Diamantova is so far back from the rest of the field. He is in a worrisome spot where he could be put a lap down and already wrecking the in the front.
Oh my goodness, the big one there, heading to turn 1. We got a car up and over as they're still wrecking down to the infield, heading for the first corner. The big one, at least the first one this evening, has struck at Daytona.
I mean, they went longer than what we projected, but that was a big one. Our front 4 felt pretty secure on where they were at, but man, everyone else just scattered everywhere.
That's based on the drivers I'm seeing that look like they got involved in this. I would wager a guess this happened maybe up around the 8th position in the territory of the 11 of Matthew Weeks, as he's brought his 11 truck to pit road. Reese Milton, Tate Lytle, Ethan Burrell, they have all been collected up in this. Joshua Adams may have gotten a piece as well, and we may not know the full extent of drivers collected. Nick DeGroot smoking on the inside there. I believe that's also the 7 rather of Corey Abbott that is smoking. A lot of trucks are torn up with this one.
What it looked like is the 45 of Jordan Owens is the car that was the catalyst to all of this. He got onto the apron out of the tri-oval, came up, collected the 7, and around everyone went. From about 5th or 6th on back, we're almost all collected in this.
And out of the tri-oval is maybe one of the worst places of trying to gauge where trucks are going to spin. It's rather spacious, but it also opens up a lot of lanes that can close up when trucks are spinning around, and that's why I think we had such a big wreck here.
Already disconnecting and parking it. It's going to be Matthew Weeks being the first car involved in this. So a rough day for that 11 that was hoping to possibly be up there for some cash and some custom designs, but no longer there. Luckily, this isn't a points race. It's just a fun event for all these drivers here. And we'll see him possibly whenever he is at his next league race.
I believe we had 3 drivers that either were up into the air or upside down. The 45 of Owens that you mentioned that triggered that wreck, he had 2 left sides up in the air. I believe the other 2 trucks that flipped over, one of them I believe was the 89 of Nick DeGroot. The other I think was the 48 of Joshua Adams.
Well, at the moment, everyone is coming in for pits and getting some tires and some fuel and trying to make it where they could possibly make it to the end here. I don't think that they can just yet. I think they might be about 4 laps short to possibly 4 to 15 laps short, matters on how the draft helps these drivers or not. That's another factor for these drivers is the draft on who stays up front. Because if you're leading the whatever lane you're leading, you are not saving any fuel while out here.
There were a lot of hard hits that were taken. Oh my goodness, Joshua Adams, I know this will be flashbacks for you, Sam. Actually, his truck got directed down to the rumble strips of what the Daytona road course turn 1 uses, and I know you're thinking what I'm thinking, back to an incident involving Ethan Reisner back in a previous broadcast we had.
I went for a ride, they usually do. That's usually you hit those rumble strips and you will go flying you'll probably take about 8 feet of air or more and just fly into the corner. So Oh man, that is a wild ride to always go on.
This is interesting that we've got a couple of drivers that are staying out here, and this cannot be a strategy call in terms of staying out to lead a lap because there are no points on the line, but Michael Goodman and Scott Haney, the 44 and the 3, have decided that maybe another caution is going to come out at some point here before we get to lap 40. They'd rather take the track position than take on the fuel and the fresh tires.
I mean, it's very possible for these drivers to be seeing a different strategy to be utilized, or they're saying, hey, it doesn't matter if there's a caution here or not. Everyone still needs to pit one more time. So let's just stick to our guns and pit whenever we feel like we need to pit.
Now, of course, with that wreck, it's so difficult to gauge the violence of the hits that these drivers and their trucks have taken in that big wreck. I mean, obviously, some drivers that we can kind of single out that more than likely won't be up to speed, those trucks that flipped over, like Nick DeGroot and Joshua Adams. I think maybe also Alexander Cognac, which I believe was the 50 truck that went up into the 89 of Nick DeGroot. I think that he's going to be done for the night. He actually has just brought his car back behind the wall. The question mark is a lot of these other drivers that we knew got pieces of the wreck, like Ethan Burrell, Daniel Higgins, Jordan Owens. Will they be up to speed or not? We're getting the answers here is more drivers out of the race. Jordan Owens has taken it to the garage area. So you mentioned it back in the heat race. We may have a very small field at the conclusion of this race because these trucks are so aerodynamically dependent. If you're just a slight bit off the pace, there's really no way you're going to win this event.
There really is, and you got to make sure that you have the pace to be going for the win because these drivers aren't going for points. It's not about, hey, I've got damage, let me go try to go out there and try to salvage as many points as possible. It's, if I can't win this race, my day's over.
So officially at this point, 3 drivers have gone behind the wall. Nick DeGroot still sits on pit road. Also on pit lane is the 7 of Corey Abbott, continue to get damage repaired to his machine, as well as Daniel Higgins. I know that there is the possibility that some of these drivers could get lucky dogs to get back in the lead lap, but at the same time, as mentioned, I don't think these trucks are going to be up to speed, as Michael Goodman, who led us to the green in the 2 starts that we had in the heat race, leads us to the green here for our first restart of the main event.
You talked about maybe there would be some drivers up here that felt like they were needed to get some practice during those heat races. Well, Goodman was one of those drivers as he moved all the way from the back of around 21st, now up to first place now.
Joshua Adams, he was, I think, bringing his machine back to pit road. A driver that returned back to the track was Daniel Higgins, but multiple laps down, and I'm a little worried up here because that 3 of Scott Haney got a little out of shape before they even got to turn 1. He's got Tony Edmondson trying to push him there on that outside line, but notice that 3's got a little bit of damage on the rear bumper.
Yeah, it got smashed in the rear end. It's the 3 machine of Scott Haney. And I'm looking at some of these other drivers up here. I mean, all of them have fresh tires except for the 44 and the 3, which are leading both the inside and the outside lane. Now, with them being on much older tires, they're going to have to deal with less grip than what the other drivers have. Yes, super speedway racing is known as not much of a tire killer, but there's still, when you run out there for longer than other drivers, the grip is still important.
Starting to get an idea of just how much of an impact that first wreck had. Right now, only 17 trucks are up in this lead pack. Michael Daniel Martinez back in 18th, about 2.5 seconds back, and then a lot of other drivers that we know got damage in some way, shape, or form. They are riding there. I don't think this is a strategy of riding towards the back. I think these are drivers that are having to deal with the damage they sustained and the lack of speed thereof.
Yeah, I mean, there's only like a few drivers I could think of that are riding in the back. I mean, this 17-car group that we have running here, I think all of them are thinking, hey, are probably the 4 cars in the back, leading with the 4 machine of Jeff O'Quinn. I would imagine these guys are probably thinking, hey, let's linger back, stay in single file until these guys make a mistake.
And how about a couple of these drivers like Jeff O'Quinn benefiting from that caution? He, as well as, I believe, there were 2 other drivers, had lost the draft back at the early portions of this race. Sam Smith, I believe, was one, and I think the other one was Shane DiMantova. They've been able to now rebound up here. You've actually got DiMantova up in that 3rd position, now leading that outside line.
Yeah, DiMantova is someone that we know can run well here at Super Speedways. He's just got to make sure that he stays clean and that's the hard thing with the racing here. We are only a lap away from running only 20 laps of this 80-lap featured race, and we've already lost almost over half our field.
Now, the one thing that Michael Goodman and Scott Haney, who stayed out, have to hope for is that a caution does come out before the halfway point of this race and that they're not involved, because if we do manage to go green around lap 40, more than likely those two are going to have to come to pit road on their own, and that's going to be very difficult for them to be able to keep up with the lead pack if indeed we end up having the entire field have a round of green flag pit stop cycles.
A little contact between the two blue and black machines of Demantova and there of Fody, as those drivers trying to figure out where they're going to be putting themselves. As it looks like Chase Dixon trying to figure out where he wants his car. Does he want to go 3 wide and push Demantova? And he's decided to push the 20 machine, and that's a very strong push. I think that 07 is really one of the best cars out here to push so far, as every single car he's gotten on the back bumper of, they've moved to the front.
Mentioning Dixon and Fody and Robin, they've been up here at the front for most of this race so far, but how about some of these new names that have popped up into the top 10? Michael Massey in the 31, Dustin Dewar in the 9, and Joshua Slate. Last time we talked about him, he was flipping and barrel rolling coming to the checkered flag in the heat race, as Scott Haney nearly got into it there, but I think that was Michael Massey.
Yeah, Massey got on the apron, and Scott Haney were already on top of one another, and what a save by both those drivers, and the rest of the field to scatter out so they did not wreck one another, but that could have been another major big one.
Absolutely could have, and one of the worst places to have a wreck at Daytona is in the center of the corner, because there's practically nowhere to go when they're all wrecking. You gotta hope that you get on the brakes and that the hole opens up for you to get through, and that would have been up there around the 7th, 8th position as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in the middle of the corner, you're stuck in your lane. You cannot change where you're going. It's into the wall. I believe that was... Ooh, that was a hard hit. I try to figure out what white car that is.
I think that's Massey in the 31. Caution! We've got a caution out. We've got a wreck towards the back. I think that's Ryan Lutz in the 36. No, he's on pit road. Ethan Burrell in the 17, I think, had an incident over in turn 1.
Ethan Burrell with a ton of other machines here and running around, and
didn't look like anybody up in the lead pack had a problem, so it would have had to have either been from second pack on back or something.
It was Ethan Burrell. Coming into turn number 2, got some contact made between himself and the 12, and just nowhere to be going for that 17 machine.
And this was a group of drivers that had gotten some damage from the first wreck. We're all racing each other for position. And here is the contact between them. Ethan Burrell is going to take a pretty good shot with the left front of his machine up into the outside wall. Oh, well, I thought he was going to get up to the outside wall. I saw a lot of left front damage, so I thought maybe he got up into the wall, but no, apparently not. That must have been from the earlier incident. Fortunately, it was in a little pack of trucks, so nobody else really got involved.
Well, another driver has decided to exit out of this, and that's going to be Reese Melton, who's a part of the list of people and teams that have helped support this event and to make it possible. Like we said, Reese Melton, Scott Haney, Vincent Isabella, Tony Edmondson, TD Custom Designs, who, like we've said previously, winner gets 3 custom designs from those guys. Going to be great to see. Blue Egg Marketing, Lake Norman Motorsports, as well as Henson Motorsports. Thank you for all the support to make this even possible.
Got some cat and mouse going on here. Some drivers coming to pit road, some drivers deciding to stay out. The first one to duck onto pit road was the 20 of Shane DeMantova from around the 3rd position, but looks like about maybe 7 drivers are going to be staying out here under this caution, and Chase Dixon, who had just gotten the lead, is going to be one of those drivers, so he'll be the leader when we go back green.
And Chase Dixon trying to get a win here. And remember, this race, yes, there's money, yes, there are prizes on the line, but mainly this event is to honor and say thank you and to everything that Randy Dixon did. Randy Dixon, like we stated, passed away back in late July and this past July, and then just missed by so many. A huge supporter of Tyler Dixon, that is Tyler Dixon's dad that passed away, as well as a big member of the Lake Norman Motorsports team. So very much missed.
Looking like we can add a couple more drivers to the list of those that will not be making it to the conclusion of this race. They have not taken their cars behind the wall, but they are many laps down. Ryan Lutz, we saw him try and get his 36 truck back out there during that last run, but he has brought his machine back to pit road and is sitting in his pit stall. Daniel Higgins and Joshua Adams still sitting in their stalls, and I believe the recipient of the free pass under that caution was the 24, or I'm sorry, rather the 96 of Todd Eldridge. So it looks like we're going to have 21 of our drivers back on the lead lap when we get back racing here. We have just now made our way past the quarter of the way mark, heading for 50% of the race done, working our second caution of the evening.
It's crazy to think this is only our second caution, and we are missing a lot of drivers. I mean, it's dwindled down so much. I mean, after those heats, we had about a potential of 33 drivers for this thing. And then by lap 12, we were down to possibly 17 drivers with a chance to win this thing. And it's still dwindling down more and more as this race goes on.
Definitely is. I mean, it's interesting because there's a lot of names that are in the field that we've seen go to victory lane at Daytona in certain leagues. Tyler Fody, we've seen him go to victory lane in the Xfinity cars. Joshua Slate, we've seen go to victory lane at Daytona in the Cup cars. But when you think about it, when you come to Daytona, it's so difficult to be able to pick out a clear winner because a lot of times it just comes down to being in the right place at the right time. So as long as your truck's up to speed, you've got yourself a shot of winning.
Yeah, I mean, all these drivers really hunting for a victory here. And I like those names that you called out, Fody and Slate. I think those are probably the two guys that you're like, those are your front runners to be getting wins here with Nick DeGroot out of this thing. But I also have my eye out on Josh Robin, who's in second right now. That 8 machine is really not making too much noise. He's just putting himself in safe places up front. But I really think Josh Robin is someone to watch out for later on in this race.
Sometimes it's the drivers that don't make the most noise early on. They're the ones you have to watch out for because you don't really know what they can bring to the table until it really matters the most. I mean, there's so many drivers here that I'm looking at that may not have had the best start to this race or didn't really run that well in the heat. We had Dylan Jones, who missed the start of the heat race, got a caution, was able to work his way up. I think he finished that event around the 11th position. But he's up here inside the top 10 now in the 7th spot in that 33 machine.
It's wild to see the different storylines that are coming up and bubbling up from this race. And, you also got Jared Rexing up here in the top 10. Haven't talked about him at all. And that is the 4 machine is someone that's been up in the top 5 and also back in the top 20 all race long, just going back and forth, wondering whether he'll be finally slating himself as well.
Kind of like a game of chess at 180 miles per hour. We saw there Chase Dixon moved up, brought Josh Robin down with him. Then Robin jumped back up to the top. Dixon couldn't block him. And now Slate, with the help from Tyler Fode on the outside, he's trying to get himself to the front. But now Slate helps on the bottom with the 07.
And Slate, we saw he was one of those machines that was involved in that first caution, but still running quick right now in second place, pushing that 07. Oh, no, there was Slate and Robin.
The wall, Josh Robin gets in, and there are more piling in. Scott Haney is collected up. Also, Michael Goodman in the 44.
I think Slate got to go for another ride upside down.
Hard hit into the outside wall as he kind of got hooked off the nose of Josh Robin. They were trying to make that outside line work, and unfortunately, it did not work in either of their favors, and a lot of drivers on that outside line didn't collect it up as well.
You talked about the fact that these drivers, they're going to be thinking about, early on, they were not side drafting, but it's been slowly each lap. They've been getting closer and closer to one another, and I think that was the cause there, where you saw that Josh Robin was coming down, and I don't think Slate was expecting to see the 8 car that close.
It's incredible how a super speedway can take what looks like a good strategy and all of a sudden make it look like a terrible strategy, because 2 of those drivers caught up in that, Michael Goodman and Scott Haney. Let's not forget, they gave up a lot of track position under that last caution because they stayed out under the first yellow, had to come to pit road under the second yellow, found themselves back in the pack, collected up in this wreck.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, right place, right time, and you just need a little bit of skill here at Super Speedway Racing and a lot of luck to get a win here.
Talked about how treacherous it is to try and bump into the tri-oval. I'm not sure if that's what led to the contact or not, or if Slate tried to move up a lane to where there wasn't room. I think he might not have been clear on the 8 of Josh Robin. We'll watch it here on the replay. Oh, it's so hard to tell. Like, it looked like Slate wanted to come up. At the same time, Robin's trying to pinch that inside line down, and unfortunately, both cars wanted the same piece of real estate.
Yeah, I mean, both drivers, like you said, trying to get to the same spot. But, I mean, that real estate isn't always going to be free for you guys. You need to make sure that there is space. And honestly, there was a miscommunication with the spotter on that call because just coming up, Slate had no room. And I think also due to the fact that we've seen this time after time, even during practice, it is difficult to keep these cars straight. And I think that might have been one of the sequences where the truck just didn't want to stay straight and drifted up.
Well, Joshua Slade has taken his number 88 to the garage area as you ride on board here with Scott Haney just going through the smoke, hoping there wasn't going to be a truck on the other end of that cloud. Unfortunately, it was the 88 who we sent up into the area. It actually gotten into the back of Michael Goodman a little bit there prior to getting into Slate in the tri-oval. So that is going to bring out the third caution of the evening here, and we continue to rack up the drivers that are going to have some damaged goods to the conclusion of this race. But here's the thing I'm thinking of as well. You know, we're talking about the fact that you've got to have a truck up to speed to be able to win this race, but let's say that just about everybody ends up having damage in this race. I mean, that is a possibility. We aren't even halfway through this race, and we've got anywhere from 10 to 12 trucks that are in this field that have damage that are still continuing on.
Yeah, I mean, the way that things are going, that might be the way that this looks by the end. I mean, these drivers are just ramping it up. I mean, I thought they would ramp it up more past the halfway marker, but they've been racing a little bit harder now than they were at the start of this race, which is kind of surprising to see.
Like Ryan Lutz has officially called it an evening in the 36. We've got about 5 trucks on pit road. Josh Robin, Michael Daniel Martinez, Scott Haney, Michael Goodman, and also Michael Massey in the 31. I remember he got up and into the wall there earlier on, but I'm not sure if that's the damage they're repairing or if he also got involved in something later on. But he has actually just now pushed his machine back behind the garage area. So the field continuing to dwindle down as right now we have 19 drivers, actually make that 20 drivers still scored in this race, but currently only 16 of them are on the lead lap.
Yeah, and a few of these guys are many laps down, so it looks like there's so many laps down that it might be impossible for them to get up front, just because even if we have a caution every single lap to the end of this thing, they will not be getting out of this thing, getting all their laps back.
Oh, it's interesting. I'm looking at a couple of these drivers here that were caught up maybe or got involved in some incidents that we didn't necessarily see. Tyler Dixon in the 79 on his last pit stop about 5 laps ago. He was on pit road for about 2 minutes getting some repairs done. And Jared Rexing, we saw that 29 up inside of the top 10 there just a couple of laps ago. He was just on pit road for about a minute making repairs. So apparently these trucks are so ultra sensitive, even with a little bit of damage. These drivers wanting to come down, get as much of that repair done as possible.
Repair, a little bit of fuel in there so you can last a little bit longer than everyone else. Any kind of strategy is really being thrown out right now. As pace car lights are out, we're going to be going this time by all these drivers hoping to keep their cars in one piece, and we'll see by the end of this thing. But I mean, some drivers that are up here in the top 10 that we haven't seen. I mean, Tate Lytle's up here.
Tate Lytle in the 56. Also the 96 of Todd Eldridge is up here now in that 6th position as the green flag back in the air. Chase Dixon gets us back underway, and a bit of a staggered start here as I don't think Eldridge was able to get going. Stopped up that entire inside line, and now outside line is lined up with 3 trucks.
3 trucks all ready to go. That second in line, though, that's Dustin Durr that we have not seen really this much during this race. He's been back around 15th to 12th place all race long, and now he just shoved the 20 in front of everyone.
Dean DiMantova gonna go to the front. Dustin Durr gonna move into second. The other truck that was helping them, the 77 of Tony Edmondson, they left him out to dry on the top line.
Edmondson now is going to have to wait for help, and it looks like Tyler Fody says, I'll be that guy. As the 40 machine and the 77 make a little bit of help on the outside. Durr gets a little bit squirrely there and almost goes into the apron.
We're going to have to wait and see if this works. We saw in practice a couple of trucks lined up nose to tail in that second line, actually able to make more speed than 3-4 trucks on the inside line as long as they were nose to tail. That's the 77 of Edmondson trying to lead that top groove. I believe that's the 21 of Harrison Tallon trying to get up there as well in that second lane. I think that's also the 37 of Casey Hatch, who we haven't really seen since the beginning of this race.
Yeah, Hatch was running up front, then got some issues, got hung up to dry on the outside while they were 3 wide. He's now moving up here as the cars are dwindling away, and Seth, it kind of looks like our heat race right now with how many cars are left in the race.
Right now, we've only got 13 trucks that are up in this lead pack, and a couple of them, actually, we know have sustained some damage in this race. There's damage on the back of the 37 of Casey Hatch. Ethan Burrell brought out the second caution, was back in a second group that appeared to be off the pace. He's up in this lead group again.
It's just wild to see where these cars are. But here's the thing, those drivers that have been staying in that 2-car tandem, the car in the back has to be aware, hey, my temps are going to be rising really quick here, and I can only stay really right on your back bumper for a lap, maybe 2 laps at most. So the drivers have to think about ways to cool off their engine.
Mantova and Dewar on that inside line, not being able to get quite the straightaway speed as the top side, as Tyler Fody pushes Tony Edmondson to the point. Not quite clear yet as the 40. I'm sure they'd love to move down, but Edmondson has to stay up there to help pull that outside line just a little bit longer.
Yeah, Talon is the driver I'm watching out for. That's 3rd car in the high side lane. That driver is looking like he's wanting to throw it 3 wide, but just doesn't have the help just yet to do so.
Yeah, if he moved up there, Casey Hatch might go with him in the 37, but then there's nobody else behind him as Ethan Burrell swaps from the outside to the inside line. Another driver back there that we haven't talked about since the start. How about Chuck Sweden, the 75? You kind of get the feeling he's kind of in ride mode right now. Whoa, Mantova! Bump from behind there from Dustin Dewar. Saves it, however. We nearly had ourselves another wreck.
That is a massive save by that 20 machine. I don't know how he did it. He went for a little bit of a ride, decided to go dirt tracking, and actually took a little bit of a jump. So I got to be aware of some of the suspension after that jump that he went on, if it's going to hurt him at all. But right now, still getting help from Dewar. We'll see how these drivers work on really catching up to these front drivers. They're trying to pull away, but looking at how everyone's getting in line, our front 2 are kind of sitting ducks at the moment.
They are. Question is, who is it that's going to try and reel them in? You've got Harrison Tallon with no help on the bottom. Mantova and Dewar trying to go back to a 2-truck tandem on the outside line there. That's Michael Goodman's 44 on the apron, letting all the leaders by. And here comes that outside line. The 20 and the 32 are back at it again.
And that's going to be, I believe, the 8 car that is running on the outside, letting cars go on by, as everyone else pulling by and really trying to move forward. As these drivers are just putting on a show for us. I'm surprised everyone stayed on the inside trying to help these drivers up front, but our top 2 drivers on the top side of Dewar and Mantova, they're still holding strong. I don't know how.
I'm going to ask you this question here, Sam, because you know more about the iRacing aspect than I do, but in the NR 2003 sim, when you've got drivers like Ethan Burrell, Casey Hatch that have the damage they've sustained, you can stay up here in this group. You can even be a little bit of a pusher, but once that truck gets out in front, it's very difficult to be able to keep up the momentum and keep that truck up to speed and hold off the runs behind you. Is it the same on the iRacing sim?
Yeah, it's exactly the same. But also, if you have any back-end spoiler damage, that could be affecting you as well, even if you're trying to push or pull drivers. But if you have damage on the front end and you try to push someone, the air from drafting actually goes over that damaged spot, and it doesn't really affect how the air is moving. So you're still good pushing someone, and that's why you're seeing some of these damaged cars still working up front. But really, up front, it really isn't a safe place based on how these guys are racing around the tri-oval.
Yeah, and I'd be a little bit worried right now for Tyler Fody and the 40 machine, Dustin Dewar in the 32, because they have stayed locked up to the bumpers of the trucks in front of them. Hopefully they've got one eye out the windshield and one eye on their water temps.
Well, that's why you're starting to see them shuffle, right? They're moving to the high side or to the inside, trying to give air to that radiator the best that they can, so it doesn't overheat as much. And they're just trying to break that air every once in a while to give it some fresh air, so it's not just burning up and really just sucking in nothing and just getting hotter and hotter.
Now, a number of these drivers were on pit road back on lap 23. Other drivers were on pit road as late as lap 27. The 07 of Chase Dixon has actually not been to pit road since all the way back on lap 14, so all these drivers at some point here are going to have to be back on pit road for fuel.
Yeah, right now Chase Dixon is really looking to work with the 24 of Todd Eldridge, but here's the thing, Todd Eldridge got broken away from this lead pack. He's all by his lonesome, about 5 seconds away from this front pack.
I'm going to ask you this, and it may be a rhetorical question, but we've only now, with Eldridge falling back, only got 12 trucks up here in this lead pack. What's the likelihood we're going to have ourselves another wreck with this small group?
It's still very high. I mean, we even saw in that heat race, right? It was a 6-lap shootout, and we had a wreck that happened there. It is still very high to see a wreck come out and a caution to come out for these drivers, but what I'm most worried about, because with this small field, they all can stay in line. They can race easy. They won't have to be so aggressive because they don't have to move so much forward, is that when we come to the pits, who will be working with who? Because pit road is where a lot of things are going to shift up. You can honestly win a race by coming in with 4 to 5 drivers and all of you coming in a little bit earlier, breaking away and running faster than that, what would be a lead pack group.
Casey Hatch now has jumped out of line. He'll lead the outside with Harrison Talon and Shane Diamantova as they make their way around the 79 of Tyler Dixon. That beautiful number 16 Tide Machine of Sam Smith has been pushed behind the wall, so he is out of the race. Josh Robin is on pit road with multiple laps down, as well as Scott Haney right now with Dixon going a lap down. Only 15 of our 17 trucks that are still running on the lead lap.
Yeah, and only 12 of our cars on the lead lap are still, quote-unquote, with this lead pack, as it looks like Dylan Jones might be losing the draft just a little bit, but he is sniffing right on the heels, just close enough to be with the Jared Rexing draft.
And this makes it really difficult for drivers like that towards the tail end of the field when you've got such a small group ahead of you that are racing double file. You need them to maybe go 3 wide and start stalling each other out if you're going to have a chance of getting back up into the lead group.
Yeah, I mean, he's close enough to where he could still come back as he is trying his best at the moment, and he already has caught back up as these drivers are shuffling, trying to figure out how to get by lap cars, as once again, that is actually not the A car of Josh Robin, like I said before. That is actually Daniel Higgins that is running that 22 machine.
And right now, Higgins not going to be in the running for this win, but trying to get the best finish possible. That last lap, he picked up a couple of spots, bypassing both Scott Haney and Josh Robin. He's now up into the 19th position, and in 6 laps time, he'll have worked his way up past Sam Smith for 18th place. But again, we got to remind everybody what's on the line here. This is not a league race. There is not a playoff position on the line, not a championship on the line, no points on the line, but $175, a winner's purse for whoever crosses the start-finish line first when the checkered flag waves.
As well as there's also going to be JD custom design cars for the winner. They get 3 free custom designs, so you get cash money and custom schemes for any car that you're wanting for to race here on iRacing. So a lot of drivers wanting and hungry to get those custom schemes as well as the money.
Michael Daniel Martinez about to be put a lap down there, leaving us 14 trucks on the lead lap, and we saw a little burst of speed there between Ethan Burrell and Casey Hatch trying to make that outside line work, but both drivers have damage. There's some right front damage on Ethan Burrell, and the spoiler, you talked about how that can affect a driver. The spoiler of that 37 shaped into a V.
Yeah, the spoiler, if it is dented out or down, it actually reacts kind of like a parachute where it tries to slow you down. And it really is just not helpful for any of these drivers out here that have that spoiler damage.
Oh, no! Harrison Talon got spun around. I think it was off the nose of Dustin Dewar. 4th caution of the evening.
And that right there is just, it's actually, that was him coming down.
Solo truck incident.
That was a, who was it that came down? I'm trying to see who it was. As it wasn't Dewar, it was actually Hatch that came down on the 12 and spun him around coming out of 4.
Well, this changes everything up now as far as fuel strategy is concerned, because with this caution coming out on lap 41, everybody can come to pit road, and they will be good to make it the rest of the way without having to come to pit lane for fuel.
Yeah, I mean, it feels pretty comfortable out here for these drivers. Is, you know, there's going to be plenty of space and for them to just come in, take the fuel that they need, and not worry about it for the future points of this race. But with how small this field is, if we have another caution in the next 20 laps, you might think about coming in for tires or so.
That, I think, was either a driver error or a huge spotter error, because even from the camera angles we have, there was no way that the 37 was clear on the 12. I don't know if he thought he was clear to tuck down in line or not, but he had, I don't think he was even clear of the entire right rear quarter panel of that 21 car.
Yeah, it's one of those things of being told something and maybe not reacting quick enough, of being clear and coming down, but at the same time, there, like you said, there wasn't any space at all. An odd call, but that is what takes out Harrison Talon.
Is there like a blind spot possibly there with the A pillar over on the left side of the truck that might have blocked his view from knowing if he was clear or not?
I mean, there's a chance that that was it, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, that's just a spotter error on that point, because everyone has a spotter. They should at least have a spotter telling them when they're clear or not. And sometimes the spotter will say you're clear, and some drivers just don't react quick enough to that call, and when they finally go down, it's not clear anymore.
Well, Tony Edmondson came down pit road the race leader. He's going to leave in third. Tyler Fode was just a little bit quicker than he was, so he's coming out second. And I believe the 07 of Chase Dixon may have missed his pit stall, which is why he's currently the leader.
That is completely what happened. He was driving in, he came over the radio and said, I missed my pit box, as he drove through pit road. And so that 07 gonna have to come in again, as last time he was already about 25 laps on a fuel run. So he needs to come in if he's gonna be with everyone else, who at this point, everyone can make it to the end. If he doesn't come in, he is not making it, and he'll have to come in at least one more time.
Well, we saw there on that last run, the 77 and the 40 working together. When the 07 does come to pit road of Dixon, that will turn the lead over and the front row to Tyler Fode and Tony Edmondson. You have to assume they're going to be working together again. And for the first time in a long time, I get to use the Joey Logano term, the okie dokie. Will we see those two maybe try and work together on the restart to get themselves lined up as soon as possible?
You always love using okie dokie now after hearing.
It's a great term.
That's our broadcast partner, Logan Brakey, loves using the term okie dokie, and we love hearing it. But yeah, no, these drivers probably will be thinking about doing that, of trying to figure out who's going to take off, who's going to move into what spot, so they can make space, so they both can continue to work with one another.
So now we know that when we get to these type of races and we get into the second half, whatever aggression we saw in the first half, it just ramps up by 110%. Do we start to see drivers be a little bit more aggressive at this point, or do we wait just a little bit longer just based on the fact of how few trucks we've still got in the running of this thing?
I mean, if I was in these drivers' ears, I would be telling them, hey, let's cool it down to the last 15 laps or so. We're all in this together at this point. We still have only about 14 cars that can really stick with us up front, and we know that we even saw this in the heat, that really in 6 laps you can make a lot of moves really quick.
Be a rundown here real quickly of the drivers that are still running in this race, as it's going to be Tyler Fode on point alongside of Tony Edmondson in second. Casey Hatch lines up third, Ethan Burrell in fourth, Shane DiMantova in fifth. Dylan Jones will be sixth, Jared Rexing seventh, Chuck Sweeting eighth, and completing the top 10, Dustin Doerr and Tate Lytle. Harrison Talon, who was spun to bring out the latest caution, will line up in 11th, Chase Dixon in 12th. Jeff O'Quinn, we haven't really mentioned a lot about him tonight, but still running on the lead lap in 13th place. Todd Eldridge in 14th. And just getting the lucky dog under that last caution will be Michael Daniel Martinez. Of the drivers that are still running in this race, you've got 2 laps down Tyler Dixon, 8 laps down Michael Goodman, and 11 laps down Daniel Higgins. And that completes the drivers that are still running in this event, as we're just past the halfway point.
Past halfway point, we want to say thank you, Tyler Dixon, for allowing us to make this event. And this event was brought on because of his passing of his dad, Randy Dixon. And for that, we're going to let these guys drive and be quiet for one lap.
36 laps to go here this evening in the RSD 200 presented by Lake Norman Motorsports at Daytona. Tyler Fode out in front. He and Tony Edmondson did a good job there on that restart, getting themselves up lined up nose to tail, but here comes Dustin Dewar trying to make the outside line work. He's got Chase Dixon behind him. Dixon's been able to make his way from 14th now up to 4th in the span of 2 laps.
Yeah, and really, I'm watching to see that 0-7 because we saw before Dustin Dewar was the one who was pushing everyone, and now we're seeing what Chase can do to push Dewar. We've seen Chase do it before with other machines, pushing him to the lead. Let's see if he can push Dewar up there.
Yeah, right now I think there's only maybe 3 or 4 trucks that have the speed and the aerodynamics to be able to challenge the 40 and the 77. Dewar, Dixon, DeMantova, and maybe Jared Rexing seem to be those drivers that don't appear to have any damage. The other drivers back here, I'm not sure how well they'd be able to help push someone past this duo, like Casey Hatch, Ethan Burrell, and Harrison Talon.
Well, speaking of cars that still look clean, I mean, Tate Lytle in 12th place. He's just been cruising since the drop of the green. That 56 machine is all clean and spiffy and ready to go, but it's whenever he feels like pulling the trigger and finally moving up front.
You know, a lot of times, too, when we're at the super speedways, you end up having, be a league race, and you've got teammates you're able to work with. Now, we've seen a couple of drivers here this evening formulate alliances, the 40 and the 77, the 32 and the 20, but, if there were guys back here like a Tate Lytle, like a Jared Rexing, who do they hook up with? Because we really haven't seen them form an alliance yet with anybody.
Yeah, I mean, when you get to the end of these races, it's not about your alliances anymore. It's about who is closest to you and who can really push you up front. I think right now, a lot of these machines are trying to figure out, okay, who's clean, who's not, and that's probably information you're getting from your spotter is, okay, these are the cars you need to be by in the final 6 to 10 laps if you want to get up front.
That caution really helped out a couple of drivers there, Jeff O'Quinn and Dylan Jones, who were in danger of losing the draft back before that caution came out. Todd Eldridge in the 96. I think his Achilles heel tonight has been the restarts. He's been really slow on the restarts, and he restarted at the tail end of this group, and I don't think he got up through the gears very well. He has lost the lead pack again back there in that 14th position. And just to update, we do have 2 more drivers that have called it an evening. Daniel Higgins in the 50 has retired out of the race. Looks like he'll finish around the 18th position, and Josh Robin has finally called it an evening. He will finish in 20th.
And these drivers up front, you're seeing the high line. They're set up way better than the inside line, and here they come as Chase Dixon is pushing that 32 machine, but he's also trying to stay straight.
Pushing him almost to the wall.
And because of that action, it shoved the inside line off course. They had to go to the apron to make sure they had space.
Boy, I was worried about that too, because it was a couple of laps ago that Dixon was on the back bumper of Dewar and again was kind of fishtailing back and forth. And I don't know if it was because he was trying to line up his bumper with the 32 or if he carried just so much speed he wasn't sure how to hit the 32 car.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes you just carry so much speed that when you hit someone, you just lose control. And he might have been just trying to save it during that whole entire sequence we watched. But luckily, everyone's still steady. They're still running. They're still in this front pack, and they can still make a move up front. They just got to reset and get going.
That was a great save by everybody involved, and especially the 32 of Dustin Dewar, who, if he had not been able to save that truck, would more than likely have pancaked the right side into the outside retaining wall, maybe even come back down to traffic and brought out our 5th caution.
Really, anything could have happened right there, but really watching these drivers running around, I mean, Casey Hatch, I don't know how that machine is still running. The back end looks terrible, was caught up in that last accident, but still running strong in that 37 machine.
Also Ethan Burrell there as well. I mean, a lot of the damage he sustained was to the front end of the truck. That would have said to me that his day was over, but he's been able to keep himself up in this lead pack also, and I can't help but think, you mentioned about Tate Lytle, but there's some other guys back there.
Hatch saves it. What a save by the 37.
And both his left sides down there on that double yellow line. And whoa, they're even getting racy further back there. Ethan Burrell may have had a little contact from behind by Harrison Talon.
Getting shoved a little bit. We saw Talon. He was wrecked up with Hatch, but that thing might look junked up, and he might be working with another junked up machine, but the power of the draft shows that you can still hook up to someone's back bumper and moving forward. But the question is, who's going to get by 40?
Here they go. Dixon
Dixon around.
the wall. Ethan Burrell, Edmondson's involved. Dewar is spinning into the grass along with Talon. At least 5 trucks bringing out the 5th caution.
Well, we once had 14 cars up front, and now we're down to 8.
And there were some hard shots taken in that one. Edmondson, lot of contact to the outside wall. I thought it was with the back of the truck, but you can see the engine has gone south on his 77, and that's a driver that I believe around the time was running in the 2nd position. And again, that looked very similar to the wreck that we had that brought out the 3rd caution between, I believe it was Robin and was it Joshua Slate, where 2 drivers just wanted the same piece of real estate again.
Yeah, Dimantova also hard contact. I think he might have blown up his engine as well after running into Edmondson. Oh, that's a lot of machines all cut up in that. That's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cars involved there. I think also Jared Rexing might have been involved in that one. I'm waiting to see though if his engine's all right.
Because that was right. I think he had some contact with the front, maybe possible contact as well for Tate Lytle. It was hard to tell if he was able to slow down before getting into the back of the 29.
Yeah, Tate's got some front end damage on that 56. So, I mean, with how small this field is about to be because of all this damaged vehicles, you might as well just stay in pits, get all that damage repaired, because it might be a long day as we're only on lap about to be 52 for these guys. This is, we're not over just yet.
As we said, this was for the 2nd position at the time, and boy, just the slightest bit of contact there, and then Ethan Burrell clips the 77 of Edmondson. I believe that Ethan Burrell may have been one of the few drivers that got away with that relatively unscathed, as well as the 07 of Dixon. I don't think Dixon really hit anything either. Both cars were able to get themselves right and drive away. They may have been able to dodge a bullet there.
Oh, there's no way Dixon got out of there unscathed. I mean, he smashed into the outside wall.
We'll take a look here at Ethan Burrell as he went spinning through the grass. We know that Talon was involved. We know Dimantova, Dewar were involved as well. Hey, Ethan Burrell, his car does have quite a bit of extensive left front damage because of him getting into the 77 of Edmondson, but he actually didn't spin through the grass. He drove straight through the grass and was able to keep going.
I mean, Chuck Sweeting was so far back that he just had to back down, and that 75 machine was fine.
We're going to ride on board here with the 29 of Jared Rexing, rather. I agree with you. I think he got a piece of this.
Oh, it was a major piece. I thought for a second he might have blown his engine with how hard he hit into that machine.
Another question mark driver would be the 56 of Tate Lytle. Well, yeah, he also ran into the back of the truck in front of him just before he got into 20 cars. So, yeah, a lot of damage there on the Nesquik machine. And we continue to kind of make the list grow shorter. I mean, we had, 13 trucks that were in the heat race to qualify their way into this event. And you mentioned about maybe having a field that size. It may be smaller than that at the rate we're going.
Yeah, I mean, we got less than 30 laps to go, and this field is already so small. It is wild to look at this as Chase Dixon, who looked like a front runner, possibly could have won this thing. A very good pushing machine. That 07 has now parked it.
I believe the recipient of the free pass there under that caution was Tyler Dixon. He was 2 laps down at the time. He'll get one of those laps back, currently in the 13th position. And this is also going to put Tyler Fode in a little bit of a situation, because on those last 15 to 20 laps, he was working with the 77 of Edmondson, who has now taken his car back behind the wall. So he's got to find a new drafting partner. Shane Dimantova has also had the number 20 pushed behind the wall. So we are now down to, I believe, 14 trucks. Actually, no, 13 trucks that are still running, as Michael Goodman has his number 44 on pit road.
Yeah, I don't know how Jared Rexing's machine's still moving, but it is. As well as he's moving with Nick DeGroot, trying to get up to this lead pack of machines. But right now, out of cars that are up front, ready to go, you've got 8 cars on the lead lap that I feel confident that can actually run well. It's from 9th on back that I'm concerned on all those machines.
Tough thing too is when we get down to the end of this race, if we have this few of trucks that are able to compete for the win, it's going to be really difficult, I think, for drivers to be able to generate runs, because you usually have to have 3, 4, 5 trucks lined up to generate the speed you need to make the move. So that'll be interesting in the closing stages.
As Daniel Martinez is having a little bit of blinking issues in that 83 machine. We'll see how the outside line wants to react to that. But so far, it's the 40 and the 4 as now Bodie decides it's time to drop down low and work with Chuck Sweeting.
You want to know if Jared Rexing's up to speed? He just shoved his way up the middle 3 wide between Todd Eldridge and Casey Hatch. So I think that 29 might still be okay.
Maybe got enough repairs done for that 29 machine. Maybe he just barely scraped him on his end. I mean, there's always the netcode part of iRacing where sometimes when you make contact, it doesn't always react to the material, and so he might still have that power, but right now, that 29 machine is pushing the 4, trying to make that outside line work.
Trying to get Jeff O'Quinn to get up to the front. You've got behind them Dustin Dewar and Casey Hatch up front right now on the inside line. Tyler Fody and Chuck Sweeting. Saw those two working together at the drop of the green. They found each other again, but that second line's got a lot of momentum.
That inside line, though, is so strong, though. I mean, Fody's got a clean car. Sweeting's got a clean car. Everyone on the outside line has some type of damage and is trying to make it work.
For the moment, Jeff O'Quinn is going to edge ahead, and he's actually going to get clear. Now he's got to decide, do I stay up there with the 29 or do I move down? He's kind of at a half decision here. Finally decides to go to the inside going into 3.
He was trying to pull the 29 far enough to where they could both drop down, but just not able to do it. Now you got Dewar as well as Rexing trying to make that outside line work. Here comes Martinez, and I think Jones was tempted to come up, but thinks otherwise.
Now if you're that 4 of O'Quinn, you have got to hug that double yellow line, because the drivers behind you, as you mentioned, don't have a scratch on them. They are definitely up to speed. That outside line, yes, they can generate speed, but they do have some damage, so they won't get around you nearly as quick as the 40 and the 75 would.
That 33 machine, third in line on the top side. I mean, I don't know how that machine is here. Barely made it to the heat race. Barely made it here for the featured race, and now is up battling up for this front pack of machines in the top 6.
Dylan Smith and that iRacing Chevrolet Silverado right now inside of the top 6 in this lead group. Behind them, you've got a group of 3 that are trying to hang with the lead pack, but they all have some damage in some way. Michael Daniel Martinez, who got the lucky dog a couple of laps ago, Todd Eldridge, and Harrison Talon, and now the 83. I think, well, he's reappeared now, but he's lost the draft now because he had to drop out, and something happened to the 75 of Chuck Sweeting.
Chuck Sweeting had an issue. I'm going back to see, he blinked out. So sometimes when you blink out, drivers just decide to back off, and that's exactly what the 75 did. Now, off pace, and with this pack of cars back here that really are not moving forward.
Now Jeff O'Quinn has Tyler Fody behind him. Casey Hatch is now moved up into 3rd because of the 75 having to drop back. Then Dustin Dewar, Jared Rexing, and Dylan Jones. That is your top group right now. 6 drivers up in this lead pack. Out of 12 drivers on the lead lap, 13 drivers still running.
Wild. Started with 33, down to 6 that are able to run in this front pack. How this race has dwindled down to nothing is crazy, and all these drivers know what's on the line. Cash money as well as some free designs to be made by TD Custom Designs, excuse me.
We've got a driver that's out there 31 laps down that has actually returned back to the racetrack. Nick DeGroot, the last time we saw him, he was up into the air on his roof heading over to turn 1. Might be out there just logging some laps, just, having a little bit of fun there in that 89 machine. Knows he's not going to be winning this race, but, doesn't want to be disconnected from the server just yet. Wants to log a couple of laps around Daytona.
Based on how many cars might be taken out by the end of this thing, he could find himself with a top 10 finish if he keeps on logging laps. I know a couple of these guys, they've decided, hey, I'm just going to quit now. I don't have a chance for the win. Others are logging laps to see how far their car can go just because of heavily damaged they are. I know some drivers were just out there until their engines blew, and now we're down just 6 cars in this front pack. Everyone else a little too far back to even try to catch them.
Well, I'm watching something right now, that outside line with Dustin Dewar and Jared Rexine, and again, this is looking very similar to what we saw earlier when Chase Dixon was trying to push the 32, moving back and forth, and it's hard to tell if it's because the 32 of Dewar is not able to hold a straight line down the straightaway, but I'm also noticing he has that damage to the rear bumper where it's kind of pushed in. Does that make it difficult for a driver to line the bumpers up?
Yeah, because you're trying to make sure you hit him square, and even if that... Oh my goodness, Dewar! And Rexine!
Caution's going to wave again.
And we're down to 4.
That looked very much like net code because the 32 jumped into the air, but I'm not certain. It was hard to tell from the camera view because it was back behind the other line of trucks ahead of them, but the 32 just jumped up into the air there.
So they're side by side. Rexine drifts up just slightly with his rear end and made a little bit of contact with the 32, which then with netcode jumped him up and spun the 29 around.
And Rexine took a pretty hard hit there into the outside wall. Dustin Dewar, fortunate for him, he was able to go down to the inside, but I think we can maybe add another driver to those that hit the rumble strips down there heading towards turn 1.
Yeah, Dewar went for a little bit of a ride after going to the inside and took a little bumps here and there. The one car that's really excited to see this caution come out is one Tyler Dixon, because he will be the lucky dog for the recipient for that, as well as Chuck Sweeting, that after his little bit of a bouncing in and out of internet connection is able to now be up front and restart with these guys up here. So now it's time to see cars that have damage, who can stick with the front runners and who can't, because just based off before that caution, we only had 6. That takes out 2.
We're also going to have to see if this is going to help drivers like Harrison Talon and Todd Eldridge, who were back behind the lead group. This is going to bring them back up into the vicinity, but both drivers have got some damage, and Eldridge hasn't been the best on the restarts. So we take another look at the incident bringing out this caution, and wow, that's a shot with the front end of the 29, the outside wall, and because of that, Jared Rexine has brought his machine back into the garage area, and the field continues to dwindle. You mentioned Jared Rexine getting the free pass. Right now, 12 drivers will be on the lead lap when we go back green.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how these drivers are going to go around here and who's going to be getting up front the best that they can. But man, actually looking at it, I think Tyler Dixon is the one that's going to get the free pass here, possibly.
Like he's going to go around, get his lap back right now, so that we'll have 12 drivers on the lead lap when we go back green, and some drivers have elected they're going to come down pit road, take advantage of this caution, and get themselves maybe some fresh tires, top off that fuel tank a little bit.
Some of them are thinking just 2 tires, others thinking just topping it off. Here's the thing, we could still go into 3 potential green-white checkers here at the end. So you might as well top off fuel if you think you're not going to make it if we get those green-white checkers.
So Jeff O'Quinn is the race leader. Tyler Fode in second. Casey Hatch in third. Dylan Jones fourth. Those are the drivers that did not come to pit road here under this yellow. Chuck Sweeting, who was the first one off pit road, and I think he may have been one of those drivers that went with the 2-tire strategy that you were talking about, as well as Todd Eldridge. They'll line up 5th and 6th. Harrison Talon, Dustin Dewar, Michael Martinez, and Tyler Dixon are going to be the top 10. Ethan Burrell and Tate Lytle on pit road. Looks like they may be getting some extra repairs done to their machines here while they've got the chance.
With Tyler Dixon getting this lucky dog, I was looking at his machine. That 79 doesn't look too beat up. And I think he was a part of that first accident and has just been trying to get up front as best as he can. Has a little bit of front end damage. But I think the 79 machine might be someone to watch out for as this run goes on, but it would still be so cool to see Tyler Dixon win this thing after this race being the honor of his dad that just passed away this past July. And that's who we're honoring for this special event race here at Daytona.
And the 2 laps that he lost that he has now gotten back, I don't think he lost them on pit road. I think he lost them during green flag conditions getting lapped on track. So, obviously, with that being said, I don't think his number 79 is completely up to speed, but With the amount of cautions we've had, and the amount of time he's been able to maybe come to pit road and get repairs done, you never know. That car could still be up to speed because we've been surprised of guys like Hatch and Talon and Ethan Burrell still being able to be competitive.
I don't know how some of these guys are up here. I mean, their cars are so just scrambled. It doesn't make sense. Hatch's machine is the one that confuses me the most out of all of them, just because of how many times we've seen him involved in a different accident, how that back end is just popped up and turned into a V. I don't know how he is running out here, but before we get back under green again, I want to give a special thanks to all those that helped us with sponsoring this event, of Scott Haney, Reese Milton, Vincent Isabella, Tony Edmondson, TD Custom Designs, Blue Egg Marketing, Lake Norman Motorsports, and Henderson Motorsports.
Going to be going back green with 17 laps to go. We've got 12 cars on the lead lap. Theoretically, I think we've got maybe 8 or 9 that are up to speed, depending on how much they were able to repair the 83 of Michael Daniel Martinez, as well as the 12 of Harrison Talon. We'll wait and see just how many there are that are going to be left to shoot this thing out, and we may not have yet seen our last caution of the evening. We have about, a third of the field still left of those that took the green to start this race, and it all depends on what happens in these final 17 laps as to how many will be in the running for the checkered flag.
Come on, Todd Eldridge, get through those gears, buddy. You can do it. That machine, that 24 car, he's not completely wrecked out. I don't think I've seen any cautions. It's mainly the fact that he doesn't get through the gears quick enough that he loses the pace, but he's got some help right now by the 17.
Something I've noticed that he does as well is he lays back just a little bit, maybe trying to get up through the gears a little bit quicker, so that way he keeps with the lead pack. I almost wonder if maybe he may have lost a gear, maybe losing second or third, which is causing his problems.
Any type of problem is major here, but up front, it's Tyler Fody and Chuck Sweeting once again.
But here comes Jeff O'Quinn with Casey Hatch, and they had a huge run through 3 and 4. Hatch going to get out of shape. O'Quinn getting out of shape. Don't get down near that yellow line, boys.
And here comes Durr as well as Jones on the I side, trying to make it a 2-car tandem to move up forward, but they just need a little bit more help as that inside line is way too hooked up.
Yeah, so Dustin Durr hasn't exactly been the best of leading a 2-car tandem, but he's been a really good pusher, as we saw earlier, between himself and the 20 of Shane DiMantova. He's trying to push Dylan Jones on that top side, but they just don't have the numbers right now. Here comes Sweeting. He's going to peek out of line. Nobody's going to go with him, though. Fody's going to move up and block.
And a very easy block there for the 40.
Oh, no, there goes the 33.
Oh, no.
37 as well.
Well, we had about 6 cars again, and they're all gone.
Dylan Jones got into Casey Hatch. I don't know if he may have gotten a bump from behind by Dustin Durr, because that 33 shot down to the left going into turn 3 really quickly.
Trying to find the right angle to see exactly what happened here, because I think he might have gotten a little bit of help from Durr, and that's what shot the 33 down.
Harrison Talon has gotten involved in something as well. I don't know if he was in that wreck or not, but he was down the apron there out of turn 4 coming back to the start-finish line.
That all happened with Dustin Durr just not expecting the 33 to slow down as much as he did, entering the corner and caught him right on the left quarter panel and launching him to the inside.
Here's a look at the replay going into turn 3, and it almost looked like, too, maybe Dustin Durr was thinking about going up the middle 3 wide and just didn't have the lane there getting into the left rear quarter panel of the 33.
Well, now how many cars are going to be left here? Once again, this is a continuous question of who is left, and out of all the cars that were damaged in that last accident, who still has a chance to be running up front? Some of these machines that are up here, they have their own slight disadvantages that's making it so they can't really run as well as they want. As I believe Lucky Dog might have gone to Michael Goodman in that 44 machine, who's 28 laps down. Oh, wait, no, he's in the pits. That actually might go to Nick DeGroot.
I think it is Nick DeGroot.
Nick DeGroot that's trying his best to possibly find himself a top 15 finish here He's still chugging along. This isn't a points race, but might as well get the best finish you can.
To answer your question of how many drivers may be up to speed, depending on how bad the damage was on Talon, Hatch, and Jones, there were only 8 trucks up in that lead pack at the time that wreck took place. So we could have as few as 4 trucks possibly still up to speed.
Tyler Fody, Jeff O'Quinn, Chuck Sweeting, Todd Eldridge. That's your top 4.
And this is typical Todd Eldridge. You and I have seen him in other leagues as well. He's one of those guys that's a survivor, and from out of nowhere, he ends up getting these amazing finishes. He's done it again here tonight.
And it's still possible for him to get a win if we see our front drivers all take each other out, which would be amazing. And you never know, Todd Eldridge might be just lagging behind, letting these cars wreck so that he has a chance here to finally get through the gears and be up there hanging out with everyone else up front.
I'm pretty sure Todd Eldridge has only been involved in one wreck here tonight, and that was the big one we had going into turn 1. I think since then, he has not been involved in any of our cautions after that point. So for the relative race, he's been keeping that number 96 clean.
Yeah, but he's got a little bit of damage on both sides in his front end, but overall, I mean, this 24 machine looking pretty decent so far, running in 4th place. A lot better than some of the cars that are running behind him, that's for sure.
Dylan Jones has brought his number 33 back onto the racetrack. He is currently a lap down. Casey Hatch and Harrison Talon, they were just on pit road, got damage repaired. They are back out, but on the lead lap. Dustin Dewar actually spent some time on pit road getting some of the front end of his 32 fixed as well. Looks like we had about 7 drivers take the advantage of coming down pit road this time. Tyler Fody and Jeff O'Quinn, right now your front row, they've been out the longest, 16 laps on their tires. Some other drivers behind them, like Eldridge, Sweeting, and Ethan Burrell, they've been out 6 to 7 laps, and everybody else was on pit road under this caution period.
Well, there's only a few drivers that are still running here that were part of that heat race. That's that's Michael Daniel Martinez, as well as Todd Eldridge. And, these drivers are all going to be trying their best. Tate Lytle as well as another driver, but we're coming to the end of this thing. It's all about who will survive.
Well, Tyler Fody has been up here inside of the top 5 all night long. Chuck Sweeting, for the most part, also has been up inside the top 5 prior to having the connection problem that dropped him outside of the top 5, but he still hung around the 7th position. But you've got Jeff O'Quinn up here, who's been a bit of a late bloomer, didn't really emerge at the front until the latter half of this race. Todd Eldridge up here, and I even think you can't even count out that 17 of Ethan Burrell. I think that there is possibility that he could still maybe be up to speed if he's in the draft. So there's still some Cinderella stories here in this top group of 9 that could possibly be going to victory lane, as we're still going to have 12 laps to go when we hit the line this time.
We know that inside line is going to get moving, but can we see O'Quinn get down quick enough to be still with this line, or is he going to drop all the way back to the end? As of right now, we've only got about 8 drivers at the ready. Here comes Dustin Durr trying to catch up here. And we are back under green on the completion of 69 laps. I don't know how we got to this point.
I think that was Casey Hatch also trying to catch up in the 37. I believe the car that was kind of fading back there was Nick DeGroot in the 89, just getting out of the way of these drivers, and there you see it. The 4 of Jeff O'Quinn was able to tuck down in line in the 3rd position behind these top 2 of Fody and Sweeting, and these may be the only 3 trucks up to speed right now. You see Ethan Burrell trying to catch up there with Tyler Dixon and Michael Daniel Martinez, but I don't think they've got the speed.
Right now, Ethan Burrell cannot be the lead car. He has way too much front-end damage. If anything, we need Dixon to be leading this group because he's got the best-looking front end. And then we know that Martinez can push as well as the 17. They need to reorganize here really quickly if they want to catch up to these front 3. They're just going to pull away as long as they stay in line.
You can see the front-end damage on Tate Lytle. He's being pushed by Dustin Dewar. I think both of those drivers have sustained damage to the front end of their trucks during the course of the evening. And there you see it. Tyler Dixon realizing that he needs to be that lead truck. He tried to go around the outside of Ethan Burrell, but Martinez would not go with him. Those 2, Ethan Burrell and Michael Daniel Martinez, are actually teammates over in some of the elite racing leagues.
Maybe they're just trying a different type of strategy here. Maybe let's try Martinez in the middle, but he's just lagging too much. He's blinking in and out. That's causing him to have issues, but here come the other 2 of Tate Lytle and Dewar that are going to cause these drivers to have a lot more machines lined up and possibly catch up to our front 3.
and a group of 5 in line that are slightly off the pace reel in a group of 3 that are up to speed. I think we're getting the answer. Looks like that group of 5 is reeling them in a little bit.
They're coming, and over chat's hilarious to listen to because Ethan Burrell saying, "Hey, Bodie, we're coming."
Don't have to necessarily have the prettiest truck to win here tonight. And look at this. You see how the 4 of Jeff O'Quinn is actually hanging back off the bumper of the 75. That's going to allow that second group even more of an advantage to reel them in.
Yeah, trying to give them as much distance as possible to work with because they are almost at the brim of missing the draft of these front 3. And once they lose that draft, there really isn't a chance for them to catch back up just because of how heavily damaged all 5 of those machines behind our front 3 are.
We know what Jeff O'Quinn could do is maybe just lag back a little bit more and allow the 17 of Ethan Burrell to pick up the tow. And look at this. Burrell and Martinez pushing each other here. We're about to have ourselves a 5-car pack. They've actually broken away from Tyler Dixon, Tate Lytle, and Dustin Dewar.
Well, they're all evenly distanced out at this moment where everyone's kind of getting a little bit and piece of the draft, but no one's close enough to be making any passes just yet. I think O'Quinn might be the only driver that's in a situation where if he really starts to take off, he might be able to pass these front 2.
I think this is exactly what he's doing. He's lagging back, trying to give Ethan Burrell and Michael Daniel Martinez a little bit of draft to get up here with him. I think the reason for that is he needs to have people willing to push him if he makes a move here on the top 2.
And they're here, and they're bringing even more company as it's a 5-car pack up front, but there's 3 other machines coming. Here they come. I talked about it. Tyler Dixon, he could be someone that could possibly win this thing. I mean, this race is honoring his dad that just passed away. What a storyline that would be if he's able to win this thing.
From 2 laps down to victory lane, that would be a comeback story tonight for sure, as Dustin Dewar may have gotten in the back of Tate Lytle just a little bit there, almost sent him up into the outside wall. It's going to be 7 laps to go this next time by. You've got a group of 8 up here. Do we have another caution coming out here before we get to the white?
100%. I wanted to ask that question to you, but 100%. We're about to have another caution here. They are 2 stacked up. Here comes the lap machine that they're going to be getting by. That's going to be that's the 12 machine that they're getting by. But these drivers, they're now getting side by side. It's going to be Tyler Dixon leading the outside lane with it's going to be Tate Lytle of the 56. How much can they gain? Because they need a little bit of help. I think that 4 car or the 17 pops up, they might have enough drivers to be moving forward.
I think right now for Ethan Burrell, he cannot be the driver to step out of line. It's got to be either Sweden in the 75 or O'Quinn in the 4, because they've got the clean enough trucks to be able to lead a draft. If Ethan Burrell jumps up there, we saw earlier with the damage on the front end, he does not have a truck strong enough to be able to lead a line, being the truck that's out in front.
And here they come. They're just slowly trying to figure out who's going to move up, who's going to be making that first move. 7 laps to go for these drivers, and it's all about the mind games now. Everyone's close enough, but you got to make sure if you make a move that you are clear to come up or go down, because you could be taking out your race and someone else's.
We've already talked about the aggressiveness picking up in terms of moves made, room taken. Tyler Fody, we're going to see the aggressiveness in blocking kicking up the more that these laps tick away.
6 laps to go here, and we will figure out who's going to be getting this done, as it is the RSD 200. And we're going to figure out who exactly is going to be winning some cash and some custom schemes from TD Custom Designs.
Blue Egg Marketing, a big sponsor here tonight, and they are on the hood of that number 40 machine of Tyler Fody out in front, trying to put that machine in victory lane. You still see the mind games there, Sweeting. He peeks out, comes back, peeks out, comes back, letting Fody know, hey, at some point, I'm going to be making a move. You better be ready for it, but it's not going to be this time.
Fody's got a very clean car, but Sweeting does as well. And O'Quinn has just a little bit of damage, but a good enough car to be making some passes up front. So it's a lot of machines, a lot of mind games. But at the moment, the 2 cars are on the high side of Martinez and Lytle. They're too damaged, and they just can't get things moving from the back end.
Trying to generate something there for maybe Sweeting or O'Quinn to jump out and be able to tow them along. But right now, those 2 are not willing to run that risk, because if they fall back, they may not be able to make their way back up to where they're currently positioned.
This is the most lull period we have seen, but at the same time, this is the most stressful that these drivers have been in, because it's all about making the right move at the right time. Dort, and as well as Dixon, contact!
And caution will fly for the 8th time here tonight as Dustin Dewar through the grass Tyler Dixon hard into the wall as well. That's going to bring out a yellow and set us up possibly for a green-white checker. The question is, will it be in the race limits or an overtime green-white checker?
I believe it actually might be in the race limits, but I could be wrong here. It's 4 laps to go for these drivers, and we're in the same state that we were in during the heat race, so I believe we're going into overtime, green-white checkered.
Boy, tough break there. Race over for both the 32 of Dustin Dewar and the 79 of Tyler Dixon, as both cars wounded and smoking coming back to pit road. We'll see if we can find out what happened to them here on the back straightaway. And it looks like Dixon made the move to the top with Tate Lytle. Dustin Dewar wanted to go up there as well, and by the time he moved up, Dixon was already to his right rear quarter panel.
It's those instant moves. The hesitation will kill you. You got to make the move immediately, and it's so difficult. And now at this point, that takes out Dixon. That was a pretty strong car that was able to pull these machines along, as well as Dewar. That was a pretty good pusher. He wasn't very good at pulling cars, but right now, it's tricky to see who really is going to be the car in the best spot. I mean, Tyler Fody most likely, but it's hard to tell because he could easily get turned here if he makes the wrong block.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen drivers be able to generate runs by themselves moving up to the outside line. Chuck Sweeting could very well do that even if O'Quinn does not go with him. And another thing that this wreck does as well, taking out both Dustin Dewar and Tyler Dixon, that's 2 drivers that could be back there generating some help on the outside line if either Sweeting or O'Quinn were to make a move. You only now have drivers like Ethan Burrell, Tate Lytle, Michael Daniel Martinez who would be able to help, and I don't know if those 3 damaged trucks would be enough.
It's going to be so hard for them, but we saw that they were able to at least utilize the draft to catch up to this main group. We just didn't see them make any passes, as Talon's going to be the one making and getting the lucky dog there, putting himself on the lead lap, giving us 9 cars on the lead lap, but how many of them will be actually racing for the lead? Most likely, it's 3 cars that are challenging for the lead if we stay green, unless they spin each other out.
Now let's figure this out if you're Tyler Fody. I think probably you'd want to be on the inside line because you'd want to have the up-to-speed 4 of Jeff O'Quinn behind you. But at the same time, we don't know what kind of a restart Chuck Sweeting's going to be able to get, and Ethan Burrell was able to get towed back up to that lead pack, so we know he's able to push. So this is going to be very interesting to see which line Tyler Fody decides to take.
I would take the inside line. Hold the inside line. Don't think about losing it at any moment. You got to make sure that the drivers are on the outside. They get behind you as quick as possible, and you just take off. But it's going to be tricky for these drivers as we're getting closer and closer to the start of this thing.
So remember, like we had in the heat race, in order for it to be an official green-white checkered, these drivers have to get back to the white flag without the caution flying. If the caution comes out, we'll rack them up and do it again. And if we were to have the lights go out this time, then I believe actually if we had the lights go out last time, we would be having an official green-white checkered. Looks like they are going to
green-white checkered
this time. So it will be a green-white checkered, but it will be 81 laps, so we'll have at least 1 lap over the scheduled distance. This is an overtime green-white checkered attempt.
And all drivers have enough fuel and tires to make it to the end. We will have 3 possible attempts for these drivers. So we'll see. Are we going to do it on the first attempt like we did for the heat race, or are we going to give it another try?
Tyler Fody, Chuck Sweeting, and Jeff O'Quinn. Those drivers we know are up to speed, relatively undamaged. They're the cleanest trucks in the field, but drivers back here hoping for a miracle. Ethan Burrell, 4th. Tate Lytle, 5th. Michael Daniel Martinez in 6th, Todd Eldridge in the 7th position, and Harrison Talon right now in 8th. Those are the only drivers that have a shot at winning this thing, unless we might have another caution come out. Tyler Dixon maybe, or I'm actually, Dylan Jones could maybe get back into this thing if we get 2 attempts at a green-white checkered, as it looks like Dustin Dewar and Tyler Dixon, those 2 are out of this thing. Dewar's back on the racetrack, but we know he had a lot of damage. Tyler Dixon still sits on pit road in the 79. So only 8 drivers in the running for this, and theoretically, just based on what we saw, maybe only 6 or 7 in the running for this win.
Yeah, I would put my money on Fody on getting this win done. That 40 machine's just been looking way too strong once he's been up in the lead, and we haven't seen really anyone pass him since we've seen all the big hitters be taken out throughout this race. So Tyler Fody in the 40, a car to watch out for. Like we said, this race is in honor of Randy Dixon, and I know Tyler Dixon said this with a heavy heart, but like this race is on honor of him. And thank you for everyone who's been watching this race. Green flag in the air for our first attempt at a green-white checker.
Boy, Chuck Sweeting got himself a good restart, going to stay alongside of the 40 machine. Question is, will Ethan Burrell be able to stay with him? Burrell moves to the inside. Sweeting's going to fall through the field.
Sweeting has space now. He's going to drop down to the third spot. This is where he's got his chance. The car in second place really is stuck in an odd spot because he's asking for that third car to either help him or where he's going to get dumped.
O'Quinn, will he move up? Oh, I think Sweeting wanted to go. O'Quinn says not just yet. Look at Sweeting trying to move down, pinch down the four, side drafting. We've seen how that's gone wrong here tonight. You got to be careful.
It's okay. They still got time. They still have another lap if they go white. But once the white flag's in the air, the next flag's going to end this thing. Our leaders are hoping for this to go the white. Everyone else in the back's hoping for him to wreck up front so they have a chance to win this thing as they come across the triangle. White flag in the air.
Back to these top three, but watch that battle for fourth place as well, because at the conclusion of this lap, that may very well be the battle for the win, depending on what happens with the top three.
Chuck Sweeting all on his lonesome, trying to make that outside line work. He's trying to side draft the best that he can, but it's just not enough momentum. He needs a little bit of help. Both Fody moving up, that's actually giving him some space.
Fody moving up, trying to keep those two trucks side by side behind him. Sweeting needs help, and he's not getting it. Jeff O'Quinn, is he maybe clearing Sweeting? Would O'Quinn move up to help him? No, he's still continuing to push the 40 truck. Now it's going to be Fody and O'Quinn battling for the win through 3 and 4.
Sweeting drops down. He's trying to get that little bit of a toe. Get a runoff here out of 4, but it's looking like it's Fody. I don't think O'Quinn has anything from here. Even though
he got him loose. He got him loose. He's going to try and pinch him down.
Here comes O'Quinn. O'Quinn's got him on the outside.
Spinning cross to the inside. Fody spins.
Quinn in the 4 gets it done after a little bit of bumping and running.
Wow. Bump and run at Daytona. There was contact between the 4 and the 40 that cut Tyler Fody loose off of 4. That opened up the door for O'Quinn to jump to the top side, pinching down Fody, and it also opened up the door for Sweeting to make it 3 wide, but Jeff O'Quinn, perfectly timed pass out of turn 4 to win the RSD 200 tonight.
What a beautiful run by that 4 machine to get it done. Holy moly, Jeff O'Quinn. He was just lingering in second and third for most of those final 20 laps, but finally, on the last lap, he made the bump and run work.
I do believe that the contact you see there, the damage around the left rear quarter panel of the 4 machine, I think that's the first bit of damage he sustained all night when he and Tyler Fody were door banging to the line.
It was just some wild racing where the drivers are trying to figure out, how do I get by him? But man, Chuck Sweeting tried his best, but with Fody coming down, it kind of blocked him from even having a chance to get by the 4.
Tyler Fody kind of put between a rock and a hard place. He had to door bang Jeff O'Quinn on the top side. At the same time, when Sweeting made the move down low, he goes down to throw the block that subsequently went around off the nose of the 75 as he will cross the line in second. Will Fody, 24 1,000ths behind Jeff O'Quinn. Sweeting in third, 66 1,000ths. That's less than a tenth of a second separating the top 3 coming to the checkered flag.
And basically the 40 and the 75 were hugging each other coming around across the line. That's what Daytona brings. You never know. You're not even safe in first place. A simple bump and run that we're used to seeing at short track racing gets a fantastic move by the 4 car of Jeff O'Quinn to move the 40 and get him a little bit loose and get on the outside and get this race win.
We're going to take another look at it coming to the stripe here, and there you see even the help there from Chuck Sweeting on the top side may have been a difference maker in allowing O'Quinn to get Fody at the start-finish line. Is what a wild finish here this evening. And again, as we said, there's no points, there's no championship, there's no playoff spot on the line, there's just cash, and that's why we see moves like that being made coming to the start-finish line.
I mean, if you ain't bumping and running, you ain't doing it right here. Is cash on the line, paint schemes on the line, but this race was all for a good heart, as this race was in honor of Randy Dixon, Tyler Dixon's dad that passed away back in July. And what a great way and a great event put on by Tyler, and just a fantastic finish here for a race that has just been chaotic from start to finish.
A race of attrition, no doubt. As you can see, the drivers that finished out this race, 9 of them in total on the lead lap. We mentioned the top 3. Tate Lytle was able to battle back for 4th. Michael Daniel Martinez was another driver that was a couple laps down in this race. Got some free passes, gets a top 5. Ethan Burrell in 6th. Todd Eldridge there in 7th. Casey Hatch and Harrison Talon going to complete the top 9 on the lead lap. Dylan Jones, who had to qualify his way in through the heat race, was running towards the back in that one and running towards the back in the first half of this race. He's going to get a top 10, and then we just move on down, and these were all the drivers that were caught up in wrecks in some way, shape, or form. I think we had a total of 8 cautions here this evening, and I think the one that really set the tone here tonight was the big wreck we had, the first caution over in turn 1.
Yeah, it really did set the pace and where everyone was going to be running, and it continued to push forward for all these drivers. But man, what a great run for all these drivers that were able to survive and make it to the end.
And of course, for these drivers, there's going to be some hurt feelings. Everybody wanted to get that $175 prize, as well as those 3 custom schemes. But it's one race, it's a special event, and so everybody comes into this race knowing that everyone is going to be making those type of moves and knowing that there is a very good chance they could end up wrecked. So everybody with that mentality coming into this race is what led to such an exciting finish. And we're going to get some interviews here with some of our top 3 finishers, see what they thought about the closing stages of that race. And let's kick things off with our 3rd place finisher, Chuck Sweeting. Hey, Chuck, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Well, it's going great for us, and what a wild finish here tonight for you. You, the 4 and the 40, seem to be the only 3 trucks up to speed. So how difficult was it being able to figure out how to generate a run with so few of you actually up there in the hunt for this win?
Yeah, it was nearly impossible. I could get up there and stay there for half a lap or so, and then fall back behind them again. So just not enough help, not enough energy there to get things going. But congrats to Jeff. He did a great job. I kind of expected Tyler to win, so it's pretty awesome if anybody can beat Tyler, because he's so good. So good job to Jeff.
When we come down to the closing stages of this race, it's kind of your friends are where you find them, or it's every man for himself. Was there at any point where you and the 4 were maybe communicating to try and get around Tyler Fody for that win, or was it basically just a whole kind of cat and mouse game between you top 3?
No, it was every man for himself, and I didn't really talk to anybody at all during the whole race. It was just it probably wouldn't have mattered because if I'd have teamed up with somebody, that ended up being wrecked. That's the way it looked like. But no, he did it all on his own. He did a good job.
Yeah, I mean, Chuck, we saw all throughout this race cautions were about to come at any moment, but there's one point during the race where you blinked and you actually lost the front pack. At that moment, what was your mindset? Were you just praying for another caution to come out?
Well, yeah, when I came back, I can't believe I came back at all because I was gone for a long time, and when I was gone, I didn't have the draft. That's why I was so far behind them. And then I did get lucky that a caution did come out because they were pulling away, and if it had stayed green, I'd have been lapped.
We ended up having that big wreck there into turn 1 at the very beginning of this race, and a lot of drivers subsequently were off the pace. As a driver that was up to speed, how difficult was it being able to gauge who was actually still up to speed and who was damaged and off the pace in terms of who you were going to work with when you were working your way back to the front?
That was a little bit difficult because Tyler had a little bit of damage, and Ethan had a lot of damage but kept getting it fixed, and it was still fast, and except right there at the end he wasn't quite able to hang on. But yeah, it was tough to tell because it looked like most of them had damage except for maybe Jeff and myself, and even the ones that were damaged, some of them were fast and some of them weren't, so just had to see how it played out.
Well, as we said at the beginning of this broadcast, in order to finish first, you have to first finish, and your car, one of the cleanest trucks out there in the closing stage of this race, a shot at winning this one, came up just 66 1,000 short, but right there at the end. Congratulations on a great run nonetheless, though, Chuck, and we're going to let you do some shout-outs now.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to let the whole Dixon family know the thoughts are with them. Appreciate them putting this on. it's tough losing a family member, and it's always nice when you can pay tribute to them like this. So it was my pleasure to be able to run in this race tonight.
That's Chuck Sweeten. He brings it home P3 here this evening in the RSD 200 at Daytona. Again, congrats on a great run here this evening, and go take a rest now because it must have been a grueling 80 laps for you guys.
All right, thanks a lot, Seth.
And let's get our second place finisher, Tyler Fody. Hey, Tyler, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
Well, man, you spent most of this race out in front. We saw you work with a number of different drivers, but man, what a wild final lap there, and a great battle between yourself, the 4 and the 75. Was there anything else you could have done there coming off of turn 4 to keep that 4 car behind you?
Yeah, gosh, I don't know. I tried everything. Coming out of 4 there, I tried to anticipate his little move to the outside, and that's when he caught me there and almost hooked me around. I was trying to hold him up there, kept it rolling, and he just side drafted all the way to the line, and I tried to throw another door at him there coming to the end, but just a little too late there, but happy with the second regardless.
You know, in this race, we saw several caution flags come out. We saw you with several different alliances, it seemed, on track. We saw you and Chuck Sweeting working together, but around the midway point, looked like you and the 77 of Edmondson were really working together a lot. Then he got caught up in that wreck and DNF'd out of the race. How difficult was it to kind of readjust your strategy and find a new drafting partner?
Yeah, Tony's an old buddy of mine, so it was good having him here tonight to kind of run with. And we were looking really good there till the end, but once he was out of it, I was trying to just see who would go with me. And I mean, I run with Chuck every week in our league, but we didn't really talk much during the race. So it was kind of every man for himself. I mean, we only had 3 trucks left anyway, so it was just going to come down to who could make it out of 4 there and get to the line.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler, we only had 3 trucks, like you said. How do you always find yourself up front at these super speedway tracks? Because it just seems like the luck is always on your side to be there at the end. Maybe you don't always get the win, but at least you're there at the end.
Yeah, I'd say it's a lot of luck, but I like to think I do a little bit to help put myself there. But man, I tell you, I don't know what position, what situation I got to be in. I just cannot get to the line first around here, but I don't know. It was a good race. I had fun.
Well, Tyler, obviously being out in front kept you ahead of the wrecks. You were there at the end, as Sam alluded to. You almost pulled off this win here tonight at Daytona, but still a great performance, a second place run for you. We're going to let you do some shout outs now.
Yeah, I got to thank Tyler Dixon first and foremost here. A teammate of mine in the Elite League. He was able to gather this pretty big field we had in a matter of days. Thanks to you guys for being willing to put this on. Our whole team, Blue Egg, for sponsoring it as well, for a pretty big occasion there for Randy. He was a big part of our team, big supporter, and I know this would make him proud, so thank y'all for doing this.
That's Tyler Fody. He brings it home second place here tonight in the RSD 200 at Daytona. Congrats on a great run there, Tyler. Congrats on a great overall race, keeping your car very much the cleanest on the racetrack here this evening and keeping up in the top 3 all night long. A great run for you here this evening.
Yep, thank you all.
And we were able to get the viewpoints of second and third place finishers. Unfortunately, it looks like we do not have our race winner, Jeff O'Quinn, here available for an interview, so not able to know what the race winner's thoughts were coming off of turn 4, but I think it's very safe to say, Sam, complete elation knowing that not only he was able to take a checkered flag in a very, I guess I could say, a very touching type of race based off of it being a tribute race, but also he finds himself $175 richer.
Yeah, I mean, he got to race a little bit of a super speedway race, like a short track for a second there out of 4. And Jeff O'Quinn, O'Quinn, excuse me, what a great run he had there, just surviving till the end and making the move that mattered the most.
8 cautions here this evening. Of course, we expected to see a lot of yellows with the fact that there was really money only on the line as the prize, but boy, typical Daytona. you never know when the big one's going to loom. You know that the push is going to come to shove the later on you get into the race, and couldn't have asked for a better finish after the race of attrition we had in the early portions of this race.
Absolutely not. I mean, we even saw that during the heat race with that early caution with those guys. We just had a sense that it was going to carry over into the featured event, and it did. And really, the featured event did not disappoint with all the action from top to bottom.
Came down to an overtime green-white checkered, but Jeff O'Quinn was able to hold off Tyler Fode and Chuck Sweeting for the win here tonight in the RSD 200. Once again, a big thank you to Tyler Dixon for reaching out to us to do this broadcast. An unbelievable race with a great cause here this evening, a great tribute to Randy Dixon, and an unbelievable finish to cap this one off. Sam, as always, appreciate you joining me here this evening in the booth.
It's always a pleasure there, Seth.
And thanks to everybody that tuned in. Tomorrow night, we've got some more racing for you. Monday Night Racing is going to be having our final broadcast of their league. I believe, if I remember correctly, it's going to be... Nope, I forgot what the mod is, or what the cars are, and what the track is. But it'll be taking place tomorrow evening. Be sure to tune in to that one. And, of course, we got a lot of other stuff coming up here for broadcast during the course of this next week. But hope everybody else enjoys the rest of their Sunday evening. For Samuel Dyer, I'm Seth Cole. You've been watching another broadcast this evening, courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.